so today we're going to be doing a review and a tutorial using the Urban Decay Naked Heat palette. A couple things before we get started. My skin is still freaking the fuck out, so hopefully you can love me through it. I think I've gotten to the bottom of the reason why it's doing that, although I feel like I've said that several times, but this time I mean it. I'll talk to you guys about it throughout the tutorial because it's really interesting and you might not know this little fun fact I'm about to throw your way. But as far as the palette is concerned, I received this from Urban Decay a few weeks ago. I did attempt to film a first impressions video using this. I think it was last week or something like that, but the footage didn't turn out. So this will not be a first impressions video. This will just be my thoughts on it. I'm gonna try not to make it as black and white, at least not all the time, about it being either just flat out good or flat out bad. Because what I'm trying to, as I've always said, encourage you guys to do is use what you have and purchase things that you actually get a lot of use out of. So with this one, I will tell you guys at the end of the video who I think it's good for, who I think it's not good for, and I will mention products along the way that I think are similar to this in terms of like the different shades, and then it might be easier for you to decide if you actually want to go through the process of getting it. I'm going to go ahead and prime my eyes using the Urban Decay Primer Potion. I mentioned this in my favorites video recently in the color Fix. It's been my go-to primer lately. Eyelid and blend it out with my fingers. Take this underneath my eye. Just the kind of person, if I'm gonna do a smoky eye, I'm gonna do a smoky eye, damn it. And we're going all the way around. All right, so I'm gonna take this big fluffy brush. This would be our brush number 1. If you're not familiar with my brush system or whatever you wanna call it, I will refer you to the down bar. There's all types of stuff down there, including the videos I'm telling you about, where I kind of break down how to pick what eyeshadow brush to pair with what eyeshadow color, kind of make your life a little bit easier according to you guys, so check it out. But I'm gonna take this brush and the color Ounce, this kind of white bone shade right here, and just loosely dust this all over my eye. You can absolutely skip this step if you want to, but I will encourage you, if you're gonna do it, don't apply too much eyeshadow to this part because it will make your colors look a little bit more desaturated. But I just like to do this because the texture of my eyeshadow primer is usually tacky, and then if it's too tacky, then my shadow will kind of grab onto it and be difficult to blend out. But if you're blending a powder into a powder, it tends to be a lot more smooth and seamless of a process. Frost and Low Blow are these matte colors right here at the front. That would be more like your transition shades. Sauce is a little bit more of kind of a peachy undertone, and Low Blow to me is a little bit more of a caramel brown undertone. I'm just gonna go with Sauce because it's what I used last time and I really liked how it turned out. And that'll be on my brush number 2, which is my Smith 232 brush. One thing about these shadows that I will say that I'm very impressed with, is how pigmented and beautiful these mattes are. It's really funny that this palette came out when it did because I filmed a how to quit buying shitty eyeshadow palettes video or whatever. One of the examples that I used for an eyeshadow palette not to buy were the original Naked palettes. And it wasn't because I don't like Urban Decay or because I don't like the eyeshadows in that palette or because I don't see why other people wouldn't like it. It was more a matter of they just didn't have enough mattes in it, and they weren't palettes you could get a whole lot of use out of. They weren't travel palettes. They weren't one look palettes, which I don't care, like I've said before, how many eyeshadows you throw in it. If I can't use them all, then I might as well just buy singles, know what I'm saying? So with that being said, there are 8 matte shades in this palette, which is pretty impressive if you ask me, considering the Urban Decay Heat palettes the Urban Decay Naked palettes of yore did not do that. So you definitely want to build up slowly with these colors because if you aren't careful, things can definitely get too spicy for the pepper. And if you know where that's from, I'll give you a cookie. I'm gonna take the same color, Sauced, on a MAC 230 brush. I don't know if the number wore off. I'll run this underneath my lash line, connecting with the outer corner because I want this to go all the way around, but I'm gonna kind of connect it in an upward motion because if you guys can tell, my eyes are very downturned, and if I follow that slope, it just kind of brings me down. It brings me down. But if I go up, it lifts and awakens and makes my eyes look bigger and brighter. So I'm gonna do that really quick. Fine for now. Next, I'm gonna take my Wayne Goss brush. This is like my favorite brush number 2 I've ever had in my entire life. Heat Devil reminds me a lot of like a brown script from MAC. They also have a color in here called Cayenne, which reminds me a lot of Heat Devil, but I guess it's more of like a desaturated version of it. This is really gonna boil down to personal preference. I don't think I have a color exactly like this Cayenne shade, but I don't mean you need to buy the whole palette for it either. So if you guys are wondering about what I was alluding to in the beginning of the video, by the way, if you haven't noticed, this is just going on like butter. As I said before, the mattes are really impressive. It reminds me a lot of the consistency of the Anastasia Beverly Hills matte shades in her palette, so just saying. So as far as my skin, like I said before when I was like, oh, I think I figured out what the problem is. I think it's the water in Tennessee, and that might sound really strange to you guys, but like I've had this problem before. I'm gonna run this under my eye really quick. I'll be right back. When I moved to Arizona from Georgia, this was back in 2011, my skin went crazy. I've talked about it before. The only thing that made it better was to change the water I was washing my face with. I'm gonna go in with En Fuego, which is right here. It's a really interesting color. It reminds me a lot of a color by NARS called, I think it's called New York. Had that color for a while. I don't get a lot of use out of it because it's not a very good formula, although it is really pretty in the pan. That's what this reminds me of. I don't have a color exactly like this, but would I buy the entire palette for it? Once again, nah. It is nice though. It's like a really beautiful, warm burgundy shade. Pretty unique, pretty cool. I'm just gonna start taking this a little bit lower. This is my brush number 3. It's gonna go a little bit lower out here in the outer corner, and then as usual, I would run it underneath my eye as well. This is not meant to be some perfect, pristine, gorgeous look. Not everything has to be that way. I'm just playing with some colors and seeing what I think. You probably don't even need to use as many of these shades, but if I'm gonna do a review of the video, we're gonna use as many as possible, any damn way. So I had lived in Georgia pretty much my entire life before I moved to Arizona. And after I got there, and this happened pretty much immediately after I got there, my friend, my skin started freaking out. Like the breakouts were unreal. It was something I had never dealt with at that point in my life either. Even in like high school and middle school, I did not have troubled skin. You can imagine my frustration, surprise, and bewilderment when I get to Arizona and it was cystic. It was under my skin, and my skin was like greasy in a way that my skin had never been before. I've always been a little bit oily, but this was some next level shit. Hang on, I'm gonna do my lash line. I'll be right back. So my skin is greasy as hell. It's breaking out. I had switched my makeup. I had done all kinds of different things. And then it just kind of occurred to me one day, well, my skin's never broken out before when I was in Georgia. Everything was great. Everything was wonderful. So obviously it's got something to do with changes I've made since I moved to Arizona. And I started just getting like gallons of water at the grocery store and using that to wash my face at night and in the morning instead of regular water that was coming out of the faucet. And I shit you not, dude, my skin cleared up. Like in a week, it was fine. That's what I'm hoping the problem is now. Apparently it's a thing. Like, it's not in my head. I actually read this article that Dr. Dennis Gross, who has a skincare line at Sephora, wrote with, I don't know if it was Allure or something like that. One of the magazines he commented on saying that it's a thing that a lot of estheticians and dermatologists aren't taking into account, especially as it pertains to people who are moving from one part of the country to the other. Or he said that it's even more obvious whenever there are people who are traveling from one place to another and their skin freaks out. And a lot of people assume it's because of the airplane or whatever, and that could be it too. But he was saying it was just very interesting to see how many people would go away and have a breakout while they were gone, even though they were using exactly the same skincare that they've always used. And I was just like reading it and just being like, please, sweet baby Jesus, let this be the problem again. So I bought some more bottled water yesterday. I've been using it. Hopefully it clears up. I just tell you this because perhaps you're having the same problem and you've never thought to try it, because it's kind of a random, like, little fun fact, huh? that maybe it's the water. Like irony of it being like, it makes me want to wash my face more when it's breaking out. So if it is the water, I'm just making it worse and worse and worse. The idea is if you're using hard water or water that's harder than you're used to, every time you wash your face, it's leaving like soap scum on your skin that's not getting off, and it's just causing this bullshit. I'm gonna go in with Ashes. This is a plummy purple shade in the palette. The only thing about this that I will say I noticed is like upon swatching it, and I haven't bothered to swatch these shadows just to be clear for the simple reason that it doesn't really matter how they perform on my finger or on a brush on the back of my hand. It really only matters how they work up here. Purples typically, and from what I understand, are like one of the more difficult shadows to formulate. It doesn't read on the eyes as a purple really. It just looks like a deep cool tone shade that makes any sense. It's good for contrast, especially with warm shades, to go in with like a purple. If I do red smoky eyes, I almost always use purple to add depth and dimension on the outer corner of the eye. So I do think it's cool that they put a purple in here because that's what I would have used in this situation. I wouldn't expect this shade to perform on your eye like a purple. It doesn't. It just looks like an ashy cool tone color. So I'm gonna take that on, no, I'll take a pencil brush. All this to say about my skin, let's talk more about me and my problems and my skin. What's funny about everything that I just told you guys is how long it took me to get to the point where I was like, maybe it's the water, because you would think it would be one of my first like assumptions that I would make about this, especially considering this problem literally started when we got to Tennessee. Prior to that, I was having some of the best skin days of my life. But the funny thing is, for the first week or so after we got here, not even that, like I would say the first 3 weeks after we got here, I was itchy as a mofo. I think I said something about this on Snapchat where every day, like every part of me just itchy, everything. I can't explain it. It was something I also had never experienced before because I'm not a dry person. So it's like, duh, obviously it's the freaking water, Whitney. If your skin was like that bad and itchy and dry and gross immediately, just let's hope that's what it is, because if it's not that, there's a whole nother slew of things it could be, and I just do not feel like going through this again. So I don't not like the way this is, but I just, I've said it before, I think every palette should have a black in it, because right now what I want to do is run some black out there, even a little bit more in that outer corner, just to kind of deepen it up a little bit more. All right, I'm gonna put the purple underneath my lash line and I'll be right back. This does kind of look like a purple smoky eye, so I guess I was dead ass wrong when I said before that it will not look purple on the eye, because it does. It's really gonna depend on how much of it you go in with. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do my lid color. For that, I'm gonna take this color here called Scorched. This to me just looks like a really, just a pretty copper shade. It reminds me a lot of Coppering from MAC. It's so beautiful in the pan, and it's really gorgeous when you swatch it. It doesn't quite perform on the eyes that way unless you wet your brush. So because I would almost always use shimmer shadows with a wet brush, I'm gonna continue to do that now. I'm gonna take my it's a 242 I think brush from MAC, and I'm just gonna spritz it a little bit with some Fix Plus, and I'm going to lightly press this in like a firm, pressy, swipey motion on the mobile part of my lid, working my way out. I'm not gonna take it any further than right about here. Now what I want to do is add a little bit of black shadow to this look, because as pretty as this purple tone is out here, I don't feel like it's dark enough to make my lid color pop, which doesn't seem like it makes sense, but when you're looking at contrast and a look, the darker the colors that you have, the lighter it makes the light colors look. I know that doesn't really make a lot of sense when I say it out loud, and it sounds kind of weird. But when I have a darker lid color like this, as opposed to a color that's closer to my skin, I should say, it makes me want to make the outer corner darker, because it's going to be like lighter and then darker, which is going to make me look more open and awake. I'm trying to find a lot easier of a way to explain that to you guys. That's where the whole color theory video that I keep promising you guys is coming. into play, but like I'll just show you on one eye versus the other and you tell me. Do you see what I mean? I haven't blended this out yet, obviously, but by contrast, this looks lighter because this is darker. Do you see what I mean? It looks like a lighter color here than here. And that's only because I made this part darker. That seems weird, I know, okay? But it's the truth. One of my biggest cons with this palette, and with most palettes to be fair, is it doesn't have a black in it. And I need one because I want to control how dark this outer corner gets. If that isn't a look or a technique that you care for, obviously that doesn't apply to you. So don't factor what I'm saying about the black shadow into the equation. That's really where reviews get tricky. Because I feel like I want to give you guys good reviews that you could use in your buying process or whatever, but I really can only speak from my point of view and what I like in a product. So I'm trying to like give you guys food for thought on the situation. Okay, did send me, as far as I know, the entire Naked Heat collection. I don't like any of the lipsticks, at least not for me. That's not from a formula standpoint because I love Urban Decay's lipsticks. It's more like the colors are not good for me at all. They also sent me two of the eyeliners that came out with the collection. One is a purple shade called Alkaline and one is a I've never seen an eyeliner like this before. This is like a warm red color named Torch. And I used this one the last time I filmed this video and I can tell you hands down this is the best purple eyeliner I've ever used. It has this gorgeous wine color to it that doesn't look like black. Like in fact, if you're not careful, this could almost look like your eyes are irritated, but I like that look. It doesn't bother me. I've used lip liners many times to get that effect, so I do really like this pencil. And this one here called Torch, which I haven't used on my eyes yet, but I can't wait to. As said before, I've never seen a shade quite like this in the eyeliner community, if you will. I'm gonna go ahead and take the Alkaline purple pencil and put this in my waterline, and I'm gonna drag it ever so slightly underneath my waterline as well because I wanna smudge it out with some purple shadow, and then I'll probably add a little bit of black as always. So here we go. Just gonna take some of that purple and just smudge it out because I kind of like that, what I call lab rat realness look. I already know I'm gonna drag this all the way down to my chin. This is messy and I love it. Okay, so I'm gonna take a little bit of black eyeshadow and I'm just gonna stick it right out here in the outer corner just to give a little bit more depth. After I do that, I'm gonna turn the camera off and go ahead and do my mascara and my lashes and my lipstick, and then I will give you my final thoughts on this palette and whether I recommend it to you guys or not. Guys, so this is the finished look. I added my lashes and my bottomless mascara. The thing that I did outside of this palette, as I said in the video, was add some black shadow to the outer corner of the eye and a little bit out here on the outer corner underneath my lash line as well. And that was just to add a little bit more depth, which is something I personally like because I feel like it gives a little bit more dimension to my very flat, very small eyeballs. My overall opinion of this palette is actually pretty high, much higher than I thought it was gonna be when I first saw it. In fact, when I first saw it, tons of you guys tagged me in the posts about it and were like, Whitney Hedrick said don't buy it, you don't need it, which I understand, but I will tell you guys, if you do not own a lot of warm shadows or if you don't own a lot of eyeshadow at all, this is definitely a good palette. It has a great selection of mattes in here. Some of them do look pretty similar, which, I mean, what can you do? But the performance of them alone to me makes that kind of something I can overlook. The shimmers aren't amazing. It's not colors that I've never seen before. I would say that this is one of those palettes that is impressive as a whole and not so much broken up bit by bit. I can't imagine a scenario where I'm gonna pull for this just for any one particular shadow because like I said, I have so many shadows that are like this. But if you don't own a lot of eyeshadow or if you don't own a lot of warm shadow and you just kind of want to try it out, that's who I think this would be good for. If you love the Urban Decay Naked collection and you just have to have it, then I guess that's cool too, but I don't think that there's a lot of people that need this. I do like it though, so you're really gonna have to assess whether this is something in your collection that you're gonna get use out of. It's always a thing you need to ask yourself the very most. Will I use this? Will I use this? And will I use it regularly enough to justify the price point of it? On a scale of 1 to 5, I would give this a 4. I'll give it a hard 4. The only reason I take a point away is because the colors are a little bit similar and there's no black. But other than that, it is a solid product, and good job Urban Decay for creating a palette with more mattes. I think that that's what you guys have been kind of dropping the ball on for a while, so it's good to see that change if nothing else. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please thumbs up the video if you did enjoy it. Make sure you subscribe if you're not already subscribed here with us. But also check the down bar for links to anything that I mentioned on my social media platforms. And is that all I have to say? I think so. Anyway, I hope you're having a great day. I'll check you in the next one. Love you more than you'll ever know.